We're good. Before we get started, I usually do a countdown. But today, great power comes great responsibility. I want to take a moment to thank the person who makes all of this happen for the show. My producer, Robbie McBride, and my wife. It's our anniversary today. And in front of 40,000 people, I wanted to say happy anniversary to my beautiful wife. And thank you very much for everything and for making this all a reality. We couldn't do it without you at all. So, and now we're ready to rock and roll. In 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Real Hospitality Live. Today, I have world famous chef Duane Keller. How are you, chef?
Oh, shucks. I'm doing great. The weather's warming up down here. The sun's shining. All the trees are blooming. It's Puxatawny Phil saw his shadow. So we're ready to go.
We went with the sunglasses to be cool Canadians today, and thank you for sporting your Canada jacket. I know that you're in DC and or near DC on the other side of the continent, and it's still winter up here in Calgary. But I'm going to give you a proper introduction. Chef Duane Keller is an inspiration for chefs and managers, kitchen leaders, people of the industry all around the world. He has been honored by James Beard Foundation to be a certificate recipient. He's got 30 years worth of experience. He's cooked for 4 US presidents, royal families, celebrities from around the world. And he's had the honor of being asked to cook for Julia Child's 90th birthday. It's my honor to have you here today, chef, so that we can talk a little bit of shop, talk a little bit of industry, and have a bit of fun. And as a fellow Canadian, take off, eh?
You got it. Thank you for the introduction. It's very nice. I always thought I was just lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And then about 20 years here in the DC Metro, I found that there's no coincidence to results. And we don't get the results by ourselves. We get our results through our staff and our team. So 20 years in the DC Metro has gone by quickly, and it's been good. It's been a good ride.
That's awesome. And I love that you mention it in that way, because I mean, my first time learning about who you are really was about conversations and posts that you've put up on social media about your approach to staff training and support and leadership and all of those things. And I went, wow, that really speaks to what we need in the industry. It speaks to the heart of the industry. It speaks to the way that we need to treat people within the industry. And it really stands out. And I mean, you have lots of different challenges. I mean, being a Canadian guy, but also working with people from different cultures and different languages. Not that being Canadian is a challenge, because we're the best, but
and humble.
And humble, exactly. Humble folk we are.
It's hard to be humble when you're the best.
That's right. It's hard. But I mean, so what's your approach to working with staff? I mean, you've got different language challenges in the U.S., different cultures coming in, big staffs as well. I mean, how are you managing with all of these different challenges?
Yeah, well, the diversity is great. I mean, there's probably no city in the country that's more diverse than Washington, D.C. I mean, after 20 years, I've still not made it through all the museums, which I'm hoping to catch up with here soon. Diversity is really important because, you know, as chefs or leaders, we learn from anybody. So think about all the things that I've learned from different people from different parts of the world in this town. It's been fantastic. You know, we've had staffs as many as 650, and I've had small restaurants where I had, you know, 3 people in the kitchen. So, you know, learning is never ends. Not for me, but I think for our business, what we're in, hospitality, it's people and food. And, you know, it's as simple as that. You treat the people and you treat the food with kid gloves, and you know, you nurture and you care and you work with your vendors and train your vendors on what your standards are, what your expectations are. And you do that with your staff as well. So it's been great all the way around.
So you have not only worked with some of the top institutes in the country and in the world, but you've worked with smaller, prestigious boutique places, the Ashby Inn, for example, and with celebrities and politicians and royalty coming through there. What a hoot!
Yeah, you know, you get to work on your table manners. That's a hint here. If I go like this, that means that's earmuffs. You might want to turn down the volume.
Oh, yeah.
Now we had a very small staff. It was myself and another cook, and we'd have a dishwasher on the weekend. But you know who we took care of were, you know, we did luncheons for Barbara Bush, and we did you know, dinner from Wednesday to Saturday night and Sunday brunch. And I'll tell you, it was one of my favorite jobs because that's when I started the sustainable local, you know, food. And that was in 1990, and I've been doing that ever since. Some of the experiences that you have at a place like the Ashby Inn are, you know, it's the people, it's who you're serving, and you know, you go out and touch the table, or you know, Brooke Shields doesn't want pecans on her snapper. You know, you got to go out there and you got to go out there and tell her you're going to take care of her. Right. There was some great press while I was there. We were in one of the latest and last gourmet magazines that were, you know, published. They did a really nice piece called Traveling Through the Hunt Country. So they featured the Ashby Inn and the Red Rock Inn and the Inn of Little Washington. So it was just a really, really awesome place to work. I had a farm that was probably 2 acres, grew most everything. If somebody came by with morels or venison or little game hens, everything was local. And you know, the menu really reflected that. And that's when I started, and I realized that the Mid-Atlantic area was so rich in resources that I wanted to live here, and I stayed. So
that's really kind of a dream for a craftsman, to be able to have all of those great tools and great ingredients to work with, and all local and always fresh. That's and in a small scale where you can really take the time to play with recipes and you know, bring the flavors out and take time to cook things down. Not always necessarily in in big events.
Yeah, planning and planting a garden. I've been doing that a long time, ever since I was a little boy. And you know, I did that at the Ashby Inn. I've done that at Belhaven. you'll never shake the roots off of you, and where I come from, the soil is as black as this jacket. And, up outside of Toronto, there's a valley where you get 2 or 3 crops of carrots in a very short season.
Right.
And that just goes to show you the nutrients and growing is all about nutrients and nurturing.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better than growing your own food and then being able to prepare it and have everybody, enjoy it.
So going from a smaller scale kitchen in a prestigious boutique establishment to cooking for 4 presidents, how do you get invited to cook for 4 presidents and Julia Childs? I mean, at the end of the day, when we in the industry, as common folk in the industry, we have dreams of getting there, and maybe have an opportunity to do things like that. And I have conversations with people all the time. I say, people get the opportunity to do that because they work to get to it and they ask for it. But what was your opportunity to be able to cook for these guys? I mean, what an honor.
Yeah, Julia Childs was 9 courses, 150 person wine dinner. And I'm still looking for that segment on PBS. So if anybody out there can help me, I would love to see that. But it was a team of 30, and, we all greeted her as she arrived. And that picture that's on LinkedIn is me shaking the Department of Agriculture's hand. And what an amazing event just to be part of. So, these things that, I talk about is just about a team. I got invited because I think, I knew a lot of chefs that were doing it, and I think and luckily they had me there because I made some diving catches and kind of saved a little bit of here and there, but I'm pretty good at math, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the cooking for the 4 presidents, I cooked a couple times at the White House. I think when you get your clearance and you get you got a squeaky background like I do, you get to do these things. So, they look you up and down and make sure you're good to go. The 2, one, I did both inaugurations for Obama.
Right.
And that was right when we opened Gaylord National. We had 3 events. One was 18,000, one was 12,000, the other one was like 8,000. And they closed off the highway, the state police. And I said to my wife, I said, I'll see you in about 3 days, because it was big events. One of the Obama inaugurations, I ended up over at the Canadian Embassy, and you talk about fun. I mean, you know how fun we have so much fun with what we do.
Yeah. And
so I got to cook for 2,500 people that were in Roots apparel with Roots scarves, and they had a luge that I should have set my phone up and did a time lapse, because while I was cooking and I was there a couple of days, but when we were in the midst of it, I saw a pallet of Crown Royal maple go from full, it must have been 30 cases, right, down to nothing. I wish I would have filmed that just in a time lapse, because
I wish I would have
they were having so much fun. And they pour the Crown Royal down the luge and do the shot at the other end. Awesome. We had poutine, we had all kinds of bison, and all kinds of Canadian fare.
Yeah.
And that was the other time. And then for Clinton, and I cooked for both Bushes.
Yeah.
They weren't anything. They were just eating where I was.
Okay.
So, but I try to stay out of their way.
So do they have a particular? I mean, there must be a whole regimen of security steps and things like that that you or the kitchen has to go through before, you know, any food leaves the kitchen and before you even kind of start preparing, right?
Many of my jobs in the past, it wasn't unusual to see Secret Service walking through.
Right.
And one of my best buddies, Con was with presidential detail for 20 years. So they'll come through, they check everything out. They obviously know who's cooking, and you know, those are just what they do. Check everything out, make sure your everything's kosher. But the inaugurations are cool, you know, to be part of.
I'm sure it's a huge celebration for us.
Yeah.
For us, it's out of our spectrum of what we see as being a reality of that many people all in this place, because we usually don't have that many people in the country at any one time up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, getting invited to and getting asked to do, you know, cook for all these people is an honor. You and I had a pre-call yesterday, and we were talking about you being invited or asked to be the first person to cook for Ali for his Ali Eats tour. And I wanted to make sure that we talked about that, because it's one thing to be asked to cook for celebrities and be a part of all of that upper echelon thing, but it's another even greater personal honor, I think, to be asked, like you were, to cook for Ali on his tour. Let's talk about that for a sec.
Well, he great kid, and you know, if you see him today, you would never understand the struggle that he went through. But he had leukemia when he was 4, and then he got through it. He was a survivor.
Yeah.
And then when he was, I think, 15 or 16, right before his birthday, he found out he had another another round of fighting coming up. And I didn't know about him, but until afterwards, kind of, I didn't know the whole story. But he gained a lot of recognition about his story, and he, you know, all he wanted to do, and I understand it completely, is he wanted to eat in a great restaurant in every state in the United States, which was his journey.
Right.
And so when they asked him, where would you start? He, you know, picked me. And Bob Gazella was the GM of Bellhaven at the time. And, you know, we have very strict protocol over there. So as a public couldn't come in and eat. Many people asked me, and I think I lost a lot of diners when I went to a private club, because everybody was disappointed they couldn't eat at the restaurant, eat my food anymore, you know? So I asked Bob. Bob said, absolutely. Didn't think twice. We set up a little table in the kitchen, and they brought in a camera crew. It was very well done. And his journey became real, and he ate throughout the country. I followed him through his journey, and he's in California now in college, and he's a little stud. He looks great.
And for those of you watching, what we're talking about is a program called Ali Eats. You can Google it. Ali
Eats America.
Ali Eats America. And what an honor for you to be chosen to be the first one. I mean, again, it's not somebody who's been made a celebrity by the industry or by politics, but doing somebody who's you know, in a spot where that's their wish list, their bucket list, right? So congratulations, that's awesome. And you also cooked on 9/11 for the first responders at the Pentagon.
Yeah, I've been part of a lot of military, you know, celebrations, and a lot of military assignments. And after 9/11, I mean, you know, we all know about that day, but
yeah,
they asked us to prepare food for, the first responders. And we sent breakfast, lunch, and dinner down for like 300 for 3 days in a row.
Right.
So we basically cooked around the clock.
Yeah.
There's this town's full of military personnel, and I've got some really great stories about, my neighbor, the general that, says, "Hey, I need you to do my daughter's wedding. And by the way, I have 2 of them coming up." And I'm like, what am I going to say?
Right.
I can't say no. So these weddings, one of them was in the middle of a field for 250. I did a buffet, and they had a little kitchen about a 5-minute car ride away.
Yeah.
It was at the Frank Lloyd Wright house over off of by Mount Vernon.
Cool.
And after all the guests ate, the band came up and said, "Hey, chef, can we get something to eat?" And I said, "Absolutely." These guys were amazing. It was like a 15-piece band. The guys were doing weddings all over the country for like 30 years. I let them eat, and they came up to me and they said, "Chef, we've never had food like this at a wedding." And they'd been doing weddings for 30 years.
Right.
The other daughter was married down at the Potomac River and at their house, and they had a fireworks display. It was like $15,000 fireworks display. It was amazing. So
nice. Awesome. It's and kind of at the beginning of this, I said, people can get there. People in this industry can get there. There's there is opportunity, and if you like you say, chef, keep your background clean, and you work hard, and you strive to work with the right people, and you strive to learn always. You can get the opportunity to do these events and work with these people, and to meet celebrities and whatnot. And this also proves that to be a well thought of and honored chef, you don't have to be on the Food Network or Good Morning America. This is this shows people in the industry what is attainable.
We learned a long time ago that you represent the company that you work for. That's the brand, or your own brand. And so I learned that back in the late 80s. And so when you work for a company, you basically, when you interview staff, it doesn't matter the candidate, you spend time with them, you're reflecting the company. So that's my saying, wherever you go, there you are. So if anybody's wondering what I was talking about, there you go. Wherever you go, there you are. Okay. And a few other things, but we make a big difference. We're leaders. I just spend my time grooming the next generation of chefs, and just the other day I was teaching my girlfriend's little brother, he's 8, how to do the temps on his hand, beef temperatures.
Yeah.
And I realized, I started cooking when I was like 8 years old. My father and mother were great cooks. My father is Russian and German. My mother was Polish and Russian, I think. But they would make, they'd make borscht. One borscht would be with the oxtail and vegetables, and the other borscht would be my mother's, which would be beets and acidity and a little sour cream.
Right.
So I started cooking when I was 8, and growing up in a kitchen that at the house was always entertaining. I mean, we always had guests. My dad was in the hockey in hockey, and my mom was I think she was with just a social person. We always were entertaining at the house.
What do you think of we talk about traditional cooking, we talk about traditional flavors, we talk about trends in this industry and on social media all the time. What are your thoughts on kind of tech in the way that things are getting introduced to us now, in not only in kitchens but in hospitality? because I've been learning more and more and more, even in the last several weeks, about different tools that are available. I mean, every man and their dog has an app, but there's all kinds of different stuff now that's just made our life easier and is making our life easier to train people and to organize what we do and spend less time in the office and more time on the line or training and teaching and inspiring.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not really that tech savvy. I mean, for me getting on this Zoom, I'm a fan of what James Beard always said. I don't like this cooking or that cooking. I like good cooking. And that's my style. My style is under promise and over deliver. When I write menus, I'm thinking, as my guests are eating this food, what is it like outside? It's highly seasonal. So, and I also like providing great value. So, we teach our staff the importance of yields and how to properly handle food. And, but, trends are good. I think it's like anything else in the arts, I mean, when people ask me what kind of music do I like every type of music.
Right.
Music to me it's amazing no matter what it is. It's somebody creating something that others can enjoy. So, but I'll stick to what I'm doing because I don't think it's going away.
Right.
It's highly seasonal food provided, with value and with a smile,
There's the age-old question, and I'll put it to you. What are your thoughts on whether or not somebody in the industry now in this day and age needs to go to a culinary arts program, or do you think that there's the same or more value in just starting out in the industry and learning as you go?
That's a great question. I was contacted a few years ago, maybe 4, to be an expert witness up in New York because a culinary school said that if you took their 6-month program and it was like 70 grand, you would be an executive chef. And when they contacted me about that, I was like, wow, like you, I laughed. I said, absolutely not. So I went up to New York a few times and sat in there and gave them my opinion. But, I've always taken classes or seminars or something, and that's all kind of reinforced what I've learned.
Right.
I mean, back in the mid 80s when I was at the World Expo in Vancouver cooking, I took some classes at Vancouver. Well, it was called the Vocational Institute back then, but I guess it's VVI now. Right up to this year, taking seminars. The idea of learning, never stopping, is very important. And I talk about kids menus. I talk about how do we take care of the kids. And I learned that in '93. I went to a National Restaurant Association seminar on how to build your business through the kids. And you treat them like adults and you give them good variety on their menus and a little special touch. And I started doing this back in 2008, handing out these spoons that say "Cook with your heart." Ratatouille, the movie.
Yeah.
The little mouse would say "Cook with your heart." So I started giving those things out at Gaylord National just for fun, and then I realized, you know what, I probably handed out 1,000 of them at Bellhaven. And not only do the kids love them, the adults want them too.
Right. They become souvenirs.
Yeah, it's great to see it. Everybody get a big kick out of something so little. Just a little thank you for letting us cook for you.
I think the comment about there's no way. I mean, when you went to this court thing, I think everybody kind of gets into the kitchen or gets into the industry and gets to a level of basics of what they know. And I mean, the key is to continuously learn and continuously take classes and always trying new recipes and always tasting new things, and that's part of what inspires us to continue to do what we do. I mean, I'm going to do some pickling later on today with kombucha vinegar.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
I mean, because I've never done it, and I'm dying to try it. And my friend Chef JJ Frazier is with Pick Me Kombucha, and they've come up with this product. And I'm not pitching the product, but I'm super curious to see what it turns out like. And when I got the sample, I was so excited. Robbie and I went to the grocery store, and we're going to pickle this, and we're going to pickle that. We're going to pickle. It's not even pickling season. We're in the middle of the winter. So we're buying expensive vegetables to pickle just so we can try it. What do you think about different statuses and different qualifications of people to be able to come in and work in kitchens? Because every man and their dog can say that they're a chef, which in my feeling, if you have enough experience and you are have been on the line, or you are in charge of the kitchen and in charge of the people and in charge of the menu and the purchasing and all of those things, then yes, you can call yourself that. You don't have to have gone to school XYZ, but I think you have to be at a certain level of experience within the industry to consciously call yourself a chef. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a
do we have to put the earmuffs on? Are we going to curse?
We yeah, we may have to. Look, I hire people on their attitude and teach them, and hopefully they stick around. What happens nowadays is, just like we did, we worked and learned from other chefs.
Yeah.
They move on. This is all part of the idea. I have, stages and 3-month stages, 1 year. Nobody knows in the background how long a person says, like, chef, I want to come and learn from you. Sure. When do you want to come? I'll come, and then this is how long they work. Right. I have an open door policy on the kitchen, and it's really pretty much saved a lot of places that I've been, because sometimes when I inherit a situation, inherit an operation that is, every operation I've ever inherited, it has opportunity to improve.
Right.
So, if I go in and there's no staff there, like I've occasionally taken over, I just put on social media, I'm hiring, and people come from all over the country. So I run like a 1-week stage, and these guys or ladies are working for a job, and it's a working interview. Yeah. And it's really exciting. It's the last one I did was 20 people, 20 professionals at one time. And Bob got to see it, and he was very impressed. And you can get a lot done with a staff that wants to work with you. There's the whole idea of the title. It's sad, because I hired a guy and he was leaning on the line his first week, and I asked him, I said, do you mind doing a little line sweep? And he said, no, I'm a chef. I didn't come here to sweep the floor. And I said, well, get the hell out.
Right.
Because I don't need somebody on the team like that. Right. If you're going to tell me what you can do and what you can't do, you go there and you basically create these results for your clientele, whether it's members or guests. I mean, look at Yelp. I mean, if I've taken over restaurants that had bad Yelp reviews and that were empty right downtown. corner of 14th and K. And I go and I read the Yelp reviews and I kind of cringe and go, okay, this is a big challenge. But I go in there and I say, hey, front of the house, back of the house, we're going to focus on 10-minute ticket times, because nobody has time to have an hour and a half lunch in downtown DC. And you see all the food trucks out there. That's our competition. Okay. And we filled the restaurant up and, filled it up from lunch. And then from lunch, it filled up at happy hour. And then from happy hour, we filled it up at dinner, because happy hour in this town is just, it's like advertising, and you get a little revenue from it. But what you're doing is you're putting on a show to show you're showing off so that they stay for dinner.
Right.
So, but going back to titles, I mean, there are a lot of titles. Call yourself whatever you want, but when it comes down to the end of the day, it's all about results.
Right.
God gave you two hands. Let's go. I see people working with one hand. We've been around, and we're not here to kill anybody. We're just here to be productive, because, it's like standing on a ball. You want to keep moving. The more productive you are, the more you learn.
Right.
And the more you learn, you have more time to learn more, because that's how you move up in this business.
Right.
You're getting there's a couple of things that are very important to cooks in the kitchen. Your ears, you want to be able to hear everything that's going on and pay attention. And I learned that back in the 80s. You want to hear what's going on around you. And then, your hands, when you're given an assignment, if you got to do 100 of these little canopies and the chef shows you one and it takes you an hour to make them.
Right.
Well, when it should take you 20 minutes. And I always give, reasonable, expectations of time. So, if you look me up and read anything about me, I use the analogy of being a player coach in hockey. I grew up in hockey, and, what we do is, it can be a little tough at times. Sometimes you're in the corners digging out the puck. Other times you're, taking a slap shot from the blue line and it's going in. Other times you're brawling. I watched this documentary called The Guardians. And what I took away from that was, the goons are, they have this profound loyalty to the team. So whatever your role is with the team, you're adding to the team. So we all have different roles, so if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. It's a great piece.
We talked yesterday on the pre-call about how kind of the state of the industry. And I always get into this conversation, but you and I had a really good conversation about it, where something changed about 10, 12 years ago, and the timeline is there. And Derek Engels and I talked about it just on Tuesday as well. And I think that in almost I think mechanizing and Wall Streeting restaurants, we've lost a lot of our soul and a lot of our reputation, a lot of our respect, in the way that we're seen as an industry, and the way that we're seen as artists and craftsmen has changed, and a lot of that's gone away. I mean, we had this conversation in the pre-call, but I mean, let's have it again now. Where do you think we are now? How far do you think we've come, and how do you think we can kind of retill that garden?
It'll come back, because most GMs appreciate what chefs bring to their operation. The craft will never go away. The ingredients have been the same pretty much, hundreds of years. It's just what we do with the ingredients. And, I went to I guess successful brand and had dinner not too long ago. And when they set the food in front of me, I mean, I looked at it and I was like underwhelmed. It looked like a robot had cooked my food.
Mm.
So when I say, you know, cook with your heart, you can take any ingredients like that are on that plate and make it, you know, make it a star, make that plate wonderful. But if there's no passion or no heart, and, you know, if they're not being taught to cook, you know, with passion and cook with your heart, you can see it. And I've had very big restaurants. I've had Moon Bay was 350 seats. We did 1,000 covers every day, you know, 250,000 a week. And, you know, we got a great review in the Washington Post, and the food was exceptional. And, you know, there was a really good example of details and people having fun at their job. So, you know, you can tell if the leader in the kitchen, you know, I mean, these are corporate restaurants, so, you know, they have specs, and, you know, everybody follows the book. But even when I worked for Darden, I worked for the Capitol Grill, the VP said that we had the best, you know, food cost, of course, and the best food quality in the company. Because when you look at a recipe, I give you a recipe, or, you know, this guy a recipe, I give a recipe to 20 people, you're gonna have 20 different things, pretty much.
Right.
You know, really, it's, so there's a little lost in translation of, you know, this chefs, you know, I'm a chef.
Right.
You know, I'm a chef, but I'm really like 6 different types of chefs in one.
Yeah.
You know, your post the other day that, you know, said this is what a chef does.
Right.
I wrote, yeah, that's a third of it.
Yeah.
Right. We do a lot more than that. But you know, the thing that happened 10 years ago was, you know, I think maybe a, you know, a correction from the Wall Street bubble rippling through the industry. Because, you know, I had a really talented young sous chef, and one of the GM of mine said, "What's the ROI on that guy?" And I almost lost my mind.
Yeah.
The ROI is he's a talented young guy, and, you know, we're teaching him. But you know, you know, chefs are chefs. Chefs are different people. You know, we do a lot of things that nobody knows what we're doing, and we're not. You know, I think I'm a fairly humble guy. I'm not telling everybody what I'm doing all the time, but when I'm not there, you can tell. And my goal is that the operation runs like I was there. Yeah. But trust me, there's a big difference when the chef isn't there. So it's right. It's not just all cookie cutter, you know, everything a template, because there's heart and soul and a lot of communication and a lot of leadership and direction that goes on that isn't in a book. So
I think and we went off on the pre-call yesterday, which got a little loud about what's the ROI on that guy. That's, yeah. And I'll tell you right now, yeah. That's the problem. And yeah. And anybody who's watching and listening, that is the problem. What's the ROI on that guy? The rather than taking the opportunity to tend to, and I use gardening, but to tend to that garden and to make sure that we have an environment for these people to grow and learn and to thrive. Rather than treating people like an inconvenience, treat them as an asset, and they will grow. And you will have an excellent kitchen. You'll have an excellent front of house, and and in turn, people will be able to taste the love in your food and feel that when they come into your establishment. And and again, once you can still have that in the corporate environment, but it doesn't, you can't just put people down as a number and an inconvenience and just another warm body. I was on a panel discussion a couple weeks, must have been a little over a month ago or something, and a gentleman was on who has an app company for hiring staff, and I was appalled. I bit my tongue till blood almost came out of my nose, and then I didn't. And his thing was, well, you can get a warm body to come in, and they can do this job, and you can bring this person in, and we can fill your roster and fill your schedule. And I was just vibrating because it's the complete opposite of what I believe this industry to be and what this industry needs to be. And I know we agree on that. It drove me crazy to think that this is being promoted.
Well, just think about how it unwinds an organization.
Right.
Because if that's your attitude, you can just plop somebody in there on the line, then they put out the food that isn't acceptable, or even the guests complain. Then you're spending all this time on recoveries, and then your impact is the P&L at the end of the day, because you're charging off $10,000-$20,000 a month in comps.
Yeah.
I mean, this worries me sometimes of how people are thinking. Like you said, just plugging people in. That's staff needs to be trained. And I recently heard somebody say, this is a manager, I don't have time to train anybody. And I thought, oh my Lord, this is not good.
Then
because
go find a job.
You're, when you step in the door, even when you're walking up the sidewalk, there's opportunities to train staff. You don't walk across a piece of trash, you pick it up. Somebody sees you, that's good, right? So there's thousands of opportunities throughout the day that are teachable moments. And if you do the right thing and organize yourself and focus on where you need to be, you'll have this time that you can impact the culture like that. And that's the profound loyalty that I'm talking about.
And this comes back to what I teach and what I talk about a lot. But there's a saying from Grant Cardone, which is be the beacon, not the tugboat. Be the lighthouse, not the tugboat. And being that example that your staff sees, and being the person who is the example of the culture that you want within your establishment, within your organization, is really the key to making this flourish. It's tilling the soil. It's showing by example the way that you want things done, and it's the way you have to do it. And Chef, thank you for being a beacon to the industry, a standard, a benchmark for staff training, staff motivation, for food quality as well. And you're super popular on social media as well. Who's doing your social media now? This guy.
Just me.
You're getting a lot of attention.
I've turned it down a little bit recently because I've been kind of focusing on myself, but I'll be back. And 2017, 18, and 19 were fantastic, and I think 2020 will be even better. Awesome. I'm just recharging right now.
Good stuff. Well, you're looking well, my friend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much for doing this today. I appreciate your time, your professionalism, your expertise, and this has been awesome. And everybody who's watching, make sure that because we are live, we're live on LinkedIn, Periscope around the world, YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell, make a comment down below, ask a question. If you're on LinkedIn, ask a question as well. I think Robbie, do we have some questions on?
We don't.
Okay.
Just a couple questions.
The best advice one. Some Q&A. There we go. Chef, there's one question on here. What is your biggest piece of advice for a chef starting out?
Make sure you're working with a chef that's going to teach you.
Yeah. Good point. And it's going to take the time.
Yeah.
And appreciate you.
I've been very open and transparent for a long time because I worked for a chef that taught me. And you know, sometimes chefs are a little afraid to share their secrets or share their even their recipes. But
right.
I feel like we are here just to you know, develop the next generation of chefs. And going back to the passion and the craft, that's never going away.
Right. Great advice.
My dad always said, you know, he played professional hockey and he knew he couldn't play hockey all his life, so he went to hairstyling school, and he was very successful. And he always said to me, he goes, you know, everybody needs a hairstyle and everybody needs to eat, so we're covered.
So we're covered. Good stuff. Well, my guest today has been Chef Duane Keller. Thank you so much, Chef, for taking the time again. And we're going to have you back on, hopefully again soon. And again, you're looking well and on the mend. Thank
Thank you.
you.
It was great being part of it.
Oh, thanks again. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.